So the next step in the process is we're going to go ahead and tack weld together all of our pieces for our headache rack frame. So I'm just going to show you an example on how to tack these joints together. Also, you can do this process on a separate work table if you have one. I'm going to do it right here on the flatbed. This is the front passenger side corner of the bed. I'm just going to do it on the flatbed in case some of you don't have a work table. I'll just show you how to get this done fairly simply. If you have a work table, it's going to be ideal to use that, but if you don't, you should have some leftover 1 3/4 tubing that you didn't cut for your piece D. So cut yourself a couple of those pieces, like 6 inches long, of 1 3/4 tubing. And what that's going to be used for is we're just going to set it on the frame as we need to, because the top of these 1 3/4 pieces is going to be at the same level as this top of the outer frame, since there's a 1 3/4 difference between the top surface of this and the top surface of our inner frame. So get yourself a couple short pieces of 1 3/4 tube. We'll just use that as like a secondary surface that's at the same level as this, but just kind of watch what I do and just replicate it. So I'm going to start with my left side piece A right here, and I'm just going to tack weld my left side piece A to my left side piece B. Then I'll tack my piece C to this piece B. Then I'll tack on my right side piece B and my right side piece A. So we'll just kind of tack it together, go around in order of pieces. So the way to do this to get a perfectly flat weld surface when you're done is to use a clamp. It can be either a vice grip or a C-clamp. So here I'm just clamping the junction of my piece A to my piece B, and make sure that your 15-degree side of your piece A is not the one you're welding to. That's actually going to weld onto the bed. That's going to be the bottom part of the headache rack. So make sure you're welding the 18.5-degree side of your piece A to your piece B. So the way you do this is just clamp it together. I kind of have it off the edge of the table a little bit so I can get my clamp in there. And you want like an 1/8 inch gap between your pieces. You don't want to butt them up tight together. The reason for that is we're just going to do 2 tack welds on the inside, and if you cut all your pieces correctly at the correct length and the correct angles, this thing should come out pretty darn close to the right measurement for the bottom outside width. So we're just going to tack weld it together right now, and then once we get it tack welded together, we're just going to play with the width a little bit before we solid weld it to make sure it's the exact width we need before we solid weld it, but we'll get into that later. So for now, just do this all the way around for all of your junctions, but leave like an 1/8 inch gap, tack weld the 2 inside corners, and then move on to your next piece, tack weld your 2 inside corners, and so on all the way around. So I'm going to fast mow this, but leave yourself a little gap, that way it has a little bit of flex when we need to adjust the outside bottom width. So just do that all the way around. Next I'm going to weld my piece C on here, and then my other piece B, and then my other piece A. Make sure all your angles are at the right ends. Refer to your blueprint diagram if you need some clarification. But we're just going to fast mow this going all the way around, and then we'll move on to solid welding this thing. So at the end of this, you should have a shape that looks like this, tack welded together, not solid welded yet. Definitely don't do that yet. But once you have this all tack welded together, all your seams should be on the inside. Then we'll move on to solid welding this thing.